It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movie of July 14th, 2000. Only one movie, and it was a pretty big one. It was pretty big for a number of different reasons that we're going to get into as we go along here. So let's talk about Bryan Singer's X-Men. Of course, this is a movie that was in development for several years. You got to go all the way back to 1984 when it started off as a film with Orion Pictures back when they were still a studio on their own. And then as the time went on, James Cameron, Catherine Bigelow were in various discussions at some points. 10 years after the development began, the film rights eventually went over to 20th Century Fox, and there was a number of different writers that came in on that, including the writer of Seven, Andrew Kevin Walker. Joss Whedon was one of the writers that came on board, Michael Chabon. Finally, in 1996, Bryan Singer came on in, and he, along with Christopher McQuarrie, David Hayter, and Ed Solomon, basically came together to put the movie that we have here together. And most notably, this is the Hollywood debut of actor Hugh Jackman, who was the last second choice for Wolverine. Dougray Scott was the original person intended for the role, but then he dropped out of this to do Mission Impossible 2, which probably was a bad move on his part, but I digress. But the basic story of X-Men, it depicts a world of superheroes in a small proportion that people are mutants who are possessing of superhuman powers, making them distrusted by normal humans. The film focuses on the mutants Wolverine and Rogue, Hugh Jackman and Anna Paquin, as they are brought into a conflict between two groups that have radically different approaches to bringing about the acceptance of mutant kind. Professor Xavier's X-Men, Xavier played by Patrick Stewart, and the Brotherhood of Mutants led by Magneto, played by Ian McKellen. The film also introduces other famous characters from the comics, including Storm, played by Halle Berry, Cyclops, James Morrison, Jean Grey, Famke Janssen, Sabretooth, Tyler Mane, Iceman, Shawn Ashmore, and Mystique, played by Rebecca Romaine Stamos. And the movie did a pretty good job of bringing all these characters from the comics to life on the big screen, especially Hugh Jackman, who I thought did a pretty good job of perfectly representing who Wolverine was in the comics and in the cartoon from the 90s. And he does create kind of a memorable character on the level of somebody like Christopher Reeve in Superman or even Michael Keaton in Batman. It's funny because they originally wanted to get Russell Crowe, too, for this part, but he dropped out due to salary issues, which probably was a good thing. I don't know if I could see Wolverine as played by Russell Crowe. I mean, and you want to know some crazy casting that could have almost happened? They almost got Keanu Reeves to play Wolverine, and I mean, Keanu Reeves is a great action star. Don't get me wrong. I mean, John Wick is pretty much everything you need to know, but as Wolverine? Like, I have to think that the casting director got fired once that name was considered because of how stupid that would sound. But yeah, that was almost a reality. But everything else about the movie looks like all the characters from the comics, and they did their job of making the comics assemble the characters to be like. And this was a game changer for superhero movies. I mean, you just had the double whammy of both Batman and Robin and Steel coming out in '97, and then there was that break between those movies, and you finally get people who know what they're doing. They are clearly fans of the source material, and the results speak for themselves. This is a film that not only helped to relaunch the superhero genre, but led to bigger and better superhero movies as time went on over the 20 plus years since this first film came out. It did a pretty good job of giving us an origin story without using the Sentinels, which is a big part of the origin of the X-Men story. I mean, even the TV series used the Sentinels in there, although they were in the early drafts of the script, but the head of Fox at the time, Tom Rothman, thought the ideas of Sentinels was stupid and didn't want them in the film, which he never really liked the X-Men characters' stories whatsoever, except for Wolverine's, and that's why we got the X-Men spin-off Wolverine, and look at how well that movie turned out. But, which begs the question, why do you even have him showing up in X-Men 3, the more I think about it? But there are a lot of problems with the movie, like the idea of having some of the one-liners which range from being really corny to just not making any sense. And you know which line I'm talking about, when Halle Berry is basically going to Toad and just like, you know what happens to a toad that gets struck by lightning? The same thing as everything else. It's just like, what does that even mean? I mean, that line doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I had to check just to make sure there wasn't like any like writer strike or something that would have kept the writers from not getting it in there to be like another Batman situation. But nope. Somebody at Fox saw that and said, sounds good, keep it in the film. And just like, that was a line that somebody threw in there because they just didn't care about their job and nobody else bothered to examine the line before they decided to film that scene. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I guess there's one other real flaw in the movie that I have, is that some of the characters really did get on my nerves, like Rogue. I mean, Anna Paquin's good in the role, but if you watch the cartoon, that she was a badass Southern belle. Like, she had that accent, too, that too, but it's just like, if you watch her in the movie, she's very whiny, she screams way too much. I mean, in a way, she's kind of more like Jubilee than from the cartoon rather than Rogue, and I'm glad that the movies down the line gave her more to do and gave her a much-needed boost in the second and third films, because she really became her own character again as we begin to like her again. Unlike here, where she just feels like she's in there just because they couldn't get the rights to put Jubilee in there, so we got to make her look more Jubilee than Rogue, and it ended up backfiring big time. Anna Paquin's a great actress too. I mean, she's got an Academy Award when she was a kid, for God's sake. But yeah, that was just not a good way to portray that character overall. Even though I thought her performance was fine in here, but yeah, X-Men does have a lot of flaws to it overall, but as a film goes on a whole, it is a really well-made movie. There's a lot of great action. The story overall works very well. The actors make the characters their own. And, like I said, it's a great superhero movie that eventually led to this renaissance of superhero movies we've had in the 20-plus years since this movie came out. And it really changed the game in terms of how to make movies again. It also gave Marvel the boost to say that, hey, we know what we're doing now. We can finally make movies based off of our characters that don't seem like they're made by hacks overall. And of course, their next film would be one of the biggest superhero movies of all time, but we'll eventually get to that when we get to 2002. But X-Men starts us off on a right note. Not a perfect film overall, but still a good enough film that does deliver everything it promises and then some. So, with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We got 4 movies to look at on the next episode, including Robert Zemeckis' one of 2 movies in 2000, What Lies Beneath with Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer, the sequel to Pokemon the first movie, Pokemon the Movie 2000, 2 of the stars of American Pie, starring in a romantic comedy, Jason Biggs and Mina Suvari in Loser, and also The In Crowd. So 4 films overall to look at next time, and we will delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.